Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Just wanted to give you all a heads up that right now you can add the Madness Network to your Roku account right there. My Roku.com account, add Crom to check out our preview. We got 10 of our highlighted shows up there for you to check out. Some of our best stuff from the last 4 years. Look, it's hard to pick 10 out of 2,600 videos, but we did it. And check it out. The campaign is launching soon, so be there. Peace.
All right, boys and girls. This is Ron from Romo Art, also from Sector 7. All right, take 2. Nope.
Evening.
Well, hello there.
How are you?
Oh, it's a Monday. It is a Monday. Work was long. Whew. How about you? How you doing?
About the same.
Yeah.
Work is long. Kids are squirrely because it's the week before break. And
that's right.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where. Sorry, I look a little fuzzy tonight on my end.
You look fine.
No,
you look
just
fine
one of those things
in my screen.
What's that?
You look fine in my screen.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So, we're just getting through, and then it's just like it's weird. Like there never seems to be any it's just one thing to the next lately. So it's like after work, Carly had a basketball game. Just a lot of stuff going on, Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting time of year. And so
thinking of something to talk about. It's something we haven't talked about. I don't think we've talked about video games a whole lot in our discussion. No, not a ton at all. And I've always thought,
even before PS5 and the lackluster stuff I see, I always thought towards the end of the PS4's gaming life, before they're going to go to the PS5, I'm like, this just didn't cut it. PS4 didn't cut it. I really think the height of gaming ended at PS3. And I think I have a few valid, not that there wouldn't be some good games for PS4, but dude, most of the games for PS4 were remakes of PS3. Like that was at least half the catalog of games. So I submit that the height of gaming is behind us. Almost like every other fucking thing that we love. I really do. I really do. And you did not disagree with me, really?
No, not a ton. At least for the foreseeable future. And I think, although I might differ with some of the reasons, as far as that goes, I think PS3 and 360 really solidified what modern gaming feels like. You of course had the Batman Arkham games debut on those consoles. You had every major shooter franchise is got their pretty much their best games, or the titles that really solidified them as the kind of kings of their genre kind of debuted on those systems.
I would say even the epic, like life-changing type playing experiences like The Last of Us. That was That was not PS4. That was PS3.
Correct. And you had like some just super innovative titles. And it's not to say that the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One are totally devoid of those, but I feel like they didn't reinvent the wheel. When you go from each prior console, there is usually a marked improvement between each generation, other than graphics. Like they're able to do more with the gameplay.
Yeah.
And while some of the games have gotten bigger, whether or not they've really been innovative since PS3 is up for debate. And
I'll say fuck no. I will say no. I'll actually throw in that they ruined probably certain games, and I will say I think they ruined God of War by trying to make everything that Last of Us type open world, epic, emotional. That's not God of War. Like, I swear to God, it's almost boring. God of War for PS4. That we didn't need that type of a story. That's not what that game was about. And because The Last of Us did so well, I feel like everything that came out for PS4 that I had played, they were just trying to get that kind of fan base with it.
Yeah,
and it didn't necessarily need it.
The Last of Us was a ridiculous success story, and even in hindsight, like that was a really, really pivotal game for me. I kind of don't pay much attention to it anymore because I think the second one was garbage, and I shouldn't say garbage, but it definitely I said it from the start. I'm like, don't touch this game.
The second one was a grab. We know what it was.
Right? It's just like, leave it alone. You've got a masterpiece. Not everything needs to be a whole franchise, and just let it be. And of course, they didn't do that, and I feel like it dilutes the original a little bit. Although the original is still a really epic piece of gaming history. There were so many games I felt like for 360, for PS3. You had the BioShock series.
That's right.
Systems were incredible. At least in terms of storyline, I don't think the gameplay really. Yeah, Dead Space. I mean, Gears of War was a huge one for me. Those games it was mind blowing at the time. The multiplayer was unmatched. at the time, and all the COD fans can fight me. I don't care. I think that series is overrated as all get out. But regardless, I think that Gears of War was incredible. Like the blend of the serious and kind of gritty overtones with the just kind of almost ridiculous gameplay at times. Like you had a gun with a chainsaw on it that could just saw through enemies. It was a blast.
My friend, my friend at the time, Chaz, had an Xbox, and that's where I played it. I'm like, I fucking love this game, and I almost bought. Like I said, I almost did it just to have that series. I almost bought an Xbox. It was so cool.
It definitely was a system seller. It really was a testament to. Now, if PS3 later in its lifetime really became a solid system, but at first Sony really messed up with it. They overpriced it out of the gate. They really priced out a lot of their market. It was a very expensive system. Like back in 2007, 2008, when it came out, I want to say 2007 off the top of my head, but it was
your dream game.
Yeah, right. It was really overpriced. Like to get the good one was like $600. And I mean, this is talking,
that's right.
Almost 16 years ago, whatever. And I mean, like I was sitting there going, I can't afford that. So I deal with the Red Ring of Death on the 360, but the system was $200 cheaper. You could get, a lot more for your money at the time. So it was like, it was very interesting. Sony really, the chip set that they designed for that system was very, very hard to program for. So it took developers, even games that came out on both systems, like would traditionally run better on the 360 because just the way the CPU, worked. So it was just really interesting to see. And eventually PS3 really made up a lot of ground and it became, a solid system in its own right. But Sony messed up right out the gate. And honestly, if Microsoft hadn't had the Red Ring issue, I don't know that Sony would have recovered in that generation at all, because Microsoft essentially had them by the throat at one point. And because their systems kept failing, like on a very, very consistent basis, they ended up, kind of almost tying at the end. Although I think in the US, at least, the 360 edged out the PS3 a little bit, which was interesting.
For me, it's weird how even if you're not interested in something, and it doesn't really happen anymore, but it used to. Even if you weren't interested in something, you would know about it. You would hear about it.
Right.
It would just come into your life somehow. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I heard that. I hear nothing about the PS5, and it's not like I'm not subscribed to the channels that would necessarily talk about it, but I'm subscribed to other channels that it should show up on my feed. Something should be fucking amazing. Because it's PS5, like, my God, nothing. It's like a ghost.
Well, again, I don't think you had a lot of, and the PS4 was a great system.
They didn't do anything with it, though. It was graphics. Yeah. It was a prettier system. That's all.
Well, I mean, you had graphical upgrades, but if you're a gamer, there is meat to be had on the PS4. It was a solid library of games, but the difference is they're not pushing. There was, and I'll go way back in time and kind of date myself. The first time I played on PlayStation 2 and played the game Grand Theft Auto 3,
sure,
that game blew my mind.
Yeah,
because it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. I'll even go a step further and say The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild back in 2016 on the Nintendo Switch, which is not the most graphically impressive system ever, but this game was mind-blowing at the time. It did stuff that no other game had done before in ways that felt awesome. And maybe even
I could name a handful, probably more, a couple handfuls of games for PS3, that's how I felt. I felt the
Right.
same way. I would leave my friend's house to go home and continue playing like Lara Croft on PS3, where she was becoming Tomb Raider. I don't know if it was called Tomb Raider, if it was called Lara Croft, I forget. But dude, the voice actress of that girl, like when she would get skewed, like when you screw up and she'd fall and she'd get skewed by a stick or something, you felt bad. Like the voice acting was fucking phenomenal. I remember leaving my friend's house just so I could go play that game. And I'm not even a gamer like that. But there were games on PS3 that hit me. So you were saying there were some life-changing games. I totally agree. Now, I can't, but can you think of even two for, let's say, PS4?
We talking new franchises or
not? Yeah, okay. It can't be a redo, but if it was like the third entry in an existing franchise, okay, yeah, you know.
I think for
that's the old school. That's PS2 right
there.
Yeah,
that's PS2 graphics, I think, right there.
Yeah.
That's
Angelina Jolie right there.
Right. I think most people would probably point to games such as the God of War remake. I'm not a God of War fan, period. So
I am, and it was not a fucking they fucking ruined it. It was not a horrible game. It wasn't a horrible game, right?
Right.
But it wasn't God of War. Again, I know that they were trying to get that Last of Us feel.
And I could tell that by the trailers even. I could tell that even by looking at like just footage of it, that they were going for that Last of Us vibe.
There was so much time spent in a fucking rowboat in a canoe talking to my son that there was almost, you would play quite a bit, and this is the weird part, you would play quite a bit with no fighting, just running and talking, and then the maps were a little weird, so like you start to circle back to where you were. You're like, what the fuck? Oh, I gotta find that chain. So some of it got a bit of annoying. Maybe that's because I'm not a gamer, but some of it I found kind of annoying. But then the weird thing is, you would have a fight, and then you would fight this big thing, right? Now in the other ones, when you fought something really big, even when it was going through the cinematic part, you'd have to press triangle at the right time or X at the right time to keep the cinematic going. In this one, you just basically watched a movie. It did it for you.
Right.
And so there was nothing that they added. To me, it only took away.
Sure.
Jesus Christ.
That's a great fuck? That's PS5 right there. I don't know if you know that. No, I'm just kidding. So, and you know what? I still say it did well enough. Like people really rallied behind it. I think Horizon Zero Dawn was another Xbox title, or excuse me, PlayStation title.
It was.
That really did well on the PS4. I started to play. I love the concept of it. I thought it was a great concept. I think they created an interesting world.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that there was some stuff that bothered me. Like they made her face like, I don't know. They were kind of like, oh, well, we're trying to get away from, attractive heroines. So we made her face ugly or homely or something, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, she wasn't. I didn't think she was ugly. I mean, definitely. I maybe a little bit more rounder face than
Yeah, and I don't care. Like, I don't need to play as I don't need to play as Lara Croft for that matter.
No.
But like I think just the sentiment behind it. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to care more because you're like super sensitive? I don't know.
But see, the thing is, like, I think that's what's killing the new games. Like,
right.
I didn't really get that, but if you got that way back then, and I mean, it's funny to say way back then with Event Horizon, but it's been some years already. Or not Event Horizon, Horizon Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
It's been some years already. You know what I mean? If you were feeling that back then, which I didn't get,
Well, they came out in 7.
just like comic books. That's what's killing everything now.
Right. Well, some of the developers actually came out and like were talking about it. So
For a fact they did that then.
Yeah. This was like something
okay.
kind of intentional, and it was discussed and things like that. So, you know, there was that sort of thing going on. But I thought the world was interesting. I started playing it, and I tell you, it kind of highlighted to me part of the problem in modern gaming is the tutorial. I've been playing games most of my life. Honestly, you know what I loved about Breath of the Wild? One of the many things. That game was amazing. It was an experience. It was one of the few times in the past, I mean, it may be the only time in the past 10 years where I've really played a game that hooked me and would not let go. It was beautiful. But there was like 5 minutes of like opening exposition. They open the door and you're out there playing. And there wasn't a huge, long tutorial. You were basically playing to learn the game for the most part. And this other game holds your hand and like baby steps you. And I'm like 2 hours into it, and it's still doing this. And I'm just like, I never picked it up again because
That's my point where they made it. Okay, that aspect of it, even though it's not exactly what I was saying, that they were taking, like, they wanted that kind of emotional Last of Us thing, that kind of drawing out of the gameplay, okay, plus the exposition, plus
right,
all you know, the emotional silences and the grand vistas and all of that slows you the fuck down. Now, I get there are gamers, and maybe this is almost all gamers, who want to get completely lost in the game. All right, I get it, and that could, like that guy. That guy looks like he's lost in real life. So, Tyrone.
Good old CJ.
Tyrone. Come on. So, but the thing is, it's just like a good movie. A good movie can be good, but if it's slow, if it's really slow, shortening a good movie up can be better.
Well, at some point in time, developers lost. Well, one, they stopped putting instruction booklets in the freaking games, but developers also lost respect for our intelligence, right? Because they, like I said, they baby step you through everything. And this is kind of yes, they do draw out games. Like there are some games where I just felt like they were adding fluff for the sake of fluff. And it was just frustrating. But I don't necessarily think that was the problem. It could have been. I never got far enough into it to really find out. It's just that they hold your hand to such an extent. That, and I'm not the first one. Ego Raptor is a YouTuber. I don't think he really does his like I forget sequelitis videos anymore. They're pretty old, but he discussed this over 10 years ago, where it's just like, I just want to play the game. I'm smart enough to figure it out. Just let me go, and it'll happen, right? And games used to be really good at kind of progressing the player in a way that felt organic. And
the longer you play, you should be able to do this many things. Let's add 2 more things. And then
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So that's what Breath of the Wild does.
Hey, Laurie, how you doing, buddy? Final Fantasy is difficult to get into.
I took a break.
Are you talking about the Final Fantasy remake?
I'm curious which Final Fantasy as well, because Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time. And the remake, you know, it all depends on which one. Some of the Final Fantasy mechanics are great. Some of them are complete trash. And it all depends on the entry. Like, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game ever. Final Fantasy VIII was total garbage. Like, I can't stand it. Okay, let's see it, Britt. Simpsons.
Video
Okay.
game? Did you really?
Well,
PS2.
Did you really?
Yeah, that shit was awesome.
Oh.
Days.
You
just
know,
gone.
so you have all these games that are coming out, and here's the thing: like the budgets on games are getting to do something new and impressive, or to get bigger. The budgets are blown incredibly out of proportion, and it's getting harder to see a return on those investments. Cheaper games that are not oh my goodness, EverQuest was a great game back in the day. You know, you have actually one of my favorite games of all time was an MMO. I love Pirates. Pirates of the Caribbean is one of my favorite film franchises ever, even though they diminished some in quality towards the end. But I played this game called Pirates of the Burning Seas, and it was awesome. There was so many layers to that game. As far as MMOs go, like you had sea combat, land combat. There was like literally like you could set up farms at different places and earn money through building resources through all these different ports and trading. There was you could go out hunting other players on the open seas. It was an incredible experience, but unfortunately, a lot of those, their player bases dwindle, and once they're not raking in a lot of money, they don't continue to be functional, but and get updated, and then it's just a matter of time. But like I said, you're seeing these budgets go way out of this world. Halo Infinite, which I actually really like. It released way too early. They changed teams several times during it. If there was a lot of problems in development. It came out an unfinished game. It came out a very good unfinished game, but it could have been groundbreaking. It really could have been. But there was such mismanagement, and thankfully, a lot of the people who were directing it are no longer. They had a Kathleen Kennedy, in other words. So that's who was essentially. If you can adapt her to Halo, that's who was running it at the time. Okay. And it's a good game. It's a really solid game. Could have been truly groundbreaking, but it just falls short. And now it's taken 3 years for it to really hit its stride in terms of being a solid multiplayer competitive experience. But it was one of the most expensive games ever developed at the same time. And you got a pretty, a decent title, but, it wasn't the life-changing experience, as you put it, that it could have been.
Let me throw this out at you, because a few times you've said, and you're right, but I don't think it's necessary. You're right that the budget to make these fucking games, all right, is astronomical. Okay, but let's think about this think about it this way. The longer technology comes out, even when technology gets better, it becomes more available and therefore cheaper. Okay, so there are things that could be used. Let's say, okay, there are things that could be used to make a beautiful game that shouldn't cost that much, because maybe it's a slightly older technology. Not everything has to be groundbreaking and brand new. In order for a game, because we have all the pretty in the world, in order for a game to be groundbreaking, that's not a money issue. That's a story gameplay issue. Well, in my opinion,
it can be both. It can be both. I think Breath of the Wilds, and again, I keep going back to that title because it was truly innovative when it released. I think what made it truly innovative is not so much graphically, but they were able to do things that they didn't. But that's actually a really good example of what you're talking about, because they did it on an older technology. Still really impressive, but that's really hard to pull off. AAA titles tend to go bigger. The expectation is that there will be cutting edge graphics.
Well, so then they marvel themselves out of existence, just like Marvel, just like everything else. They marvel themselves out of existence because you can't keep going bigger and bigger. Because I don't know why people aren't listening. The bigger historically with anything in the world, the bigger you go, the weirder. People keep screaming more and more. It's like a fucking sequel to a movie. All right, everyone screams for a sequel. No one likes it, and yet every movie they see, they keep screaming for a sequel. Guess what, jackasses? They're going to ruin it. You're not going to like it. Leave it alone. So
what you're seeing happening with that is
exactly.
Yeah. What you're really seeing happening is as these budgets are getting higher, studios aren't willing to risk creating new IPs for AAA titles.
Now you're starting to circle it down the fucking drain. That's my point.
Right.
It happens every time. Why can't they stop?
Right. You're going to get 3 new God of War sequels before you get a new property that rivals it. It's that's why.
And then you'll have God of War with tits because that's going to happen eventually.
Goddess of War.
And Goddess of War, but it's still crazy.
You're going to play as Athena.
He came out of the closet or cave. It's fucking. I mean, it's so frustrating because it's like. I'm not one that believes that things work the way we're told they work, but let's say they do. Let's say if they did, can't someone be like, guys, every time a business or corporation does what we're doing, it falls apart in the end. Let's just pick a different path. I don't think they care so much.
I think they understand that it's going to fall apart in the end, but they're going to milk it until it does. And that's really the mindset. And then, they'll get out and they'll have already made their billions. And then, either they or someone else will pick up the industry from the ashes like they always do. And
I think eventually, I just had this thought. Things are started by people that love those things. But then the business takes over. And it becomes not about the thing, but about the money. So you end up having people creating the thing that don't care about the thing. And then we're sitting here loving the thing with great ideas with no power. We just watch our thing fall every time. Because at the end, the people who are creating it don't care about it.
Well, right. And that's the part of the life cycle we're at. We're also at a place where they're genuinely running out of ideas. And in terms of gameplay, like we've done a lot. Like there's only so many different ways you can make an open world new and interesting.
Yeah,
okay?
I agree.
Without really thinking outside the box. But guess what? New ideas that are actually good are really hard. So when we talk about there's nothing new, yes, we get sequelitis, and not in terms of the YouTube show, but in terms of like we just have AAA title on repeat. Like the Grand Theft Auto 6 is in development. The Elder Scrolls 6 is in development after we've gotten like literally probably 10 different re-releases of Skyrim, which was an amazing game. But I mean, you're talking, it's 15 years old and it's still being, getting new anniversary editions with new content. And it's like, guys, for how long are you actually going to, continue to just bleed this game dry? But
you know what? It's funny. I'm sorry that to say this, but that's actually like a lot of the more top tier indie creators that were in the business. You know what I mean? Kind of living off their name and just re-releasing old things and, getting those $120,000 Indiegogo campaigns. But it's like, like you're not buying the book, you're buying the name.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's where we're at. I think that you and I'm getting off on a different tangent here. I think if we're going to be successful, I don't think that the route we were going is even going to work, or at least
it's not. It's already. I mean, it seems to me it's already starting to die. I mean, look at YouTube. Everyone's numbers are in the toilet.
Right.
It's across the board. So it's like there is a societal malaise that's happening, and everyone feels a little less alive inside, to be honest, buddy.
Right.
I thought I thought there was only a handful of us, and I came across this video on my YouTube feed one morning when I couldn't sleep, and there's no reason I should have clicked on it, but I did, and it was about that societal malaise, like people feeling less alive after the past few years, after 2020, and how nothing really seems to matter anymore. And there's a lot of people that feel that way. And I think it's reflecting in the numbers, to be honest. No one
Right.
cares about Hollywood. We don't like it anymore. No one cares about a lot of things. And the things that we cared about, okay, so them demoralizing, at least let's just say our little sector of the world, the US, them demoralizing and taking away all our hobbies and things that made life bearable, it kind of worked. And that's why they're not stupid. Like they had a game plan and they know what they're doing. It did take away some of the fun of life. And I think we're all feeling that now. Maybe some of us don't know why, but it's like we were talking about before. Just, I think it was the last one it was the last YouTube thing that we did. We were talking about that. Like, nothing's fun anymore. Nothing. And video games
Very
are
few
going
things.
that way.
Very few things. And I think part of it is getting older. Like as you get older, like it's hard to experience things that we haven't experienced before, because we have every time, like Godzilla -1 was one of those rare occasions for me. Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate the Christmas spirit. I wish, it's funny, I think it's just hard to have time to appreciate the season, to her point. But but Godzilla -1 was one of those rare occasions where I was genuinely excited again. Like it was a very, very rare moment, a pure joy moment. And then, like, back to our point, Breath of the Wild was one of those very rare occasions for me where you had an experience that was very new. Everything else is more of the same. So I think, as it does inevitably become harder to feel like anything's new and exciting, because it's not. We've done it before, been there, done that. And that's part of gaming right now, is that they've done many, many, many things. The AAA titles that are continuing to make money are the sequels to previous AAA titles. Mm-hmm. So they keep doing that. And the reason why we're not getting any true innovation is because they don't have to, because people are still spending. The video game industry is still multi-billion dollar industry, so they don't really have to, as long as they're producing, what's worked in the past. Right now, people are still buying it, and they don't really have, there's very few times where a game is truly innovative and doing something that's never been done before. And I don't follow gaming the way I used to. I could be someone that really, actually, they've been quite addictive to me at times in the past. So while I do enjoy gaming now, I do it in moderation, because I could get way over the top with it. I've been there at points in my life. So, but most of the games I go back to are really simple games that's not going to be easy to get hooked on, or at least I can jump in for, a few minutes here and there. There are still some that I'll try to invest in that, but it's hard, man. Like a lot of games I used to love, like RPGs, as an adult, you don't have the 100 hours.
You don't have that time. Yeah, I know.
Right. Like, I love this strategy RPG series called Disgaea. And this game is so deep that you could really pick almost any one of them in the series and just play it indefinitely. Like that's, Skyrim for a lot of people has been like that for folks, where they've really just become part of its world, and they're still playing to this day, which is why
I remember Bill. I used to go over Bill's apartment. Me and Matt had a friend a friend Bill, and he moved to Japan. I used to go over to Bill's apartment, and he would constantly be modding the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it was Skyrim, but he told me he when there was like a moon, like when it was nighttime and there was a moon and stuff like that, he said he would just be in that world. He wouldn't even play the game. He would use his character like he's his character and just look at the moon.
Right.
Like you know what I mean? Like you could really, and the way he would mod the game, holy shit. Like it looked so real sometimes. Even back then, you could mod the game and make it look even better. And it was crazy.
Right. Yep. It was like a really, really deep experience. So, there's so many facets to this because, we want something new and exciting, but like, how do you do that? Like when you've been able to go into Middle Earth and play around in that world, like, how do you make it? How do you truly innovate that? Like, how do you make it different? And sometimes they get it right. And like I said, that Legend of Zelda game is permanently imprinted on my mind. It was a new and exciting experience, and I really loved it. For like the things you could do in that world were just so much fun, and unlike anything I could ever do before. So, but they released a sequel, and it's just more of it's what I wanted. It was more of that, bigger and better, but now it doesn't have the same fresh, new, shiny feeling to it. So there's a trade-off there. What comes next for it? I don't know. Who is going to make the next big innovative thing? It's going to be really interesting to see, but I'm just not sure where the gaming industry's headed. I'm not even sure they're concerned with reinventing the wheel at this point.
I actually kind of assumed that by now there'd be more virtual gaming going on than there is. I know it's like a unique thing, and there are virtual, gamers out there and virtual gaming, but I really thought that all gaming at this point, you would be in the game by now. You know what I mean?
I think because it doesn't work the way you want it to feel like you're in the game, and inevitably you feel like you're wearing something on your face and you're kind of in the game, but really it just feels like the screen's against your eyes for the most part.
Right.
Like that's really what it is.
Yeah.
You still can't feel and touch things. And I think that's what they want, a virtual reality. And it's not, it's cool, but I don't think it's that. There's definitely some interesting things, but I don't think it really does anything. If the Wii taught us anything, it's that for traditional gaming, people don't want to move. Okay. It's true. Like I had, me being the Godzilla fan, of course, I had Godzilla Unleashed on the Wii, a fantastic title, really fun gameplay, and people hate it because there's some motion controls. Now, mind you, I could sit in the chair, any chair you put me in, a recliner, and with minor just little flicks of my wrist, I'm doing the controls, right? And would it be nice to be able to have that option to turn it off? Of course it would. But it really wasn't impeding my ability to enjoy the game. And it wasn't like I was, getting out of breath playing this game. It really didn't matter a whole lot, actually. It felt very intuitive at times. But people really dislike it, even that little bit. So... unless you're purposely playing like a game like bowling or boxing or something where the motion controls feel really cool and natural and you don't mind getting a little sweaty or getting up off your butt, those types of things, people really hated that kind of idea. So I think for most types of games and most genres, the virtual, no one wants to play a shooter like this, like with their hands up in the air for the most part. And even then, it then becomes kind of cumbersome to move and things like that. So it really doesn't translate all that well and ends up feeling more like you're just, again, playing a regular video game with the screen against your eyes.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
At least a lot in my view. And then they do incorporate some motion controls, but, you know, for the most part, you know, quote unquote hardcore gamers don't care for them.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
You know, so it's really been an interesting journey with VR. What has been nice, if I can say something good about the gaming industry, is a resurgence of what's really been interesting is retro games with pixel art. Not all of them, because some of them were really bad, of course, and there's limits, because the Atari 2600, like, no one's looking at those games and calling them beautiful.
No, yeah.
But a lot of the NES and particularly the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era, they've aged really well, and there's a certain beauty to those pixelated graphics.
See, okay, I'm glad you brought this up. I'm really glad you brought this up, because this ties into my idea of it's no different than fucking comic books circling the fucking drain. There's a resurgence in retro gaming, which pretty much proves my point that the height of gaming is already behind us, because there wouldn't be a resurgence if we were stoked on the new shit. It's just not how the brain works. In my opinion, that's just not how people work. People don't look backwards unless their current is not so hot. All right. And I'm a big nostalgia guy. I get it. I was an 80s kid, the best generation ever. So we already had that discussion though. But same with comic books though. So gaming most comic books that sell now are the older, are the way older ones. That's why Marvel and DC just keep doing the reprints and the essential volumes and all this, because they're the ones that sell. Nothing good, nothing new is selling. So everyone's looking back and everyone's appreciating, including myself, without all the eye-popping colors. Just holy shit, these people. Yeah, sometimes the paneling is standard 1, 2, 3, 4, but what they did in those panels, I look at with new eyes now, because I really appreciate the line work and how they connected everything. And it's like gaming, I knew it. I mean, I'm glad you brought it up, because I kept forgetting to bring it up. Gaming's the same way. Gaming's all retro game. The most popular gaming now is retro.
Well, a lot of it. And I think there's still there's a huge market for the new graphic stuff, but what we talked about with like budgets and just the increasing lack of innovation in them, and also the sequels, like where there's no new franchises, they're only sequel to existing franchises. What has been a byproduct of that is producing retro games is significantly, like, producing pixel art is significantly cheaper than producing a AAA title game. So what's happening is you're getting a lot of games with, say, like old school graphics. I played one not too long ago. That was a lot of fun. It wasn't perfect. I would have liked to see some more depth in it, but it reminded me of Castlevania Symphony of the Night for PlayStation 1, which was actually a 2D side-scrolling Castlevania game with like RPG elements in it, and it was really, really fun. One of my favorite games of all time, actually. And this game really emulated its style remarkably well, to the point where I'd almost say, you know, it was walking that line between homage and ripoff. But what was really cool is, like, they're producing high quality games for indie, you know, prices. Essentially, you can pay $10-15 and get a really solid game. Now, and some of them even end up being new classics for that matter. Like, it's been really interesting to see that sort of resurgence. And I think, like I said, I do think it's because pixel art ages. Like, when you go back and look at some games, now I love the N64, I love the PlayStation 1, Twisted Metal, for example, right? Twisted Metal the first one, the graphics have not aged well. They're not beautiful, right? It's a fun game still. I enjoy it for what it is, but when I go back and look at like Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo, those games look awesome still. Like the 2D graphics still hold up, whereas the 3D ones of those early eras, really, I say pre-PS2 were really rough.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them were really rough.
Yeah.
So that's it'll be interesting to see if those ever come back. I know Minecraft kind of went that route. And at first I was like, when I first saw that game, I was like, what's wrong with the graphics? Are they going to update that? Like, this looks like crap. But, that became a charm of its own. I don't know if it'll spread beyond that, but it was really interesting to me. Yes.
Yeah. There it is.
The horse. But, we'll see. I think some of it's nostalgia for older gamers. And I think people just genuinely appreciate the retro style. And we've been able to look at in hindsight and say, okay, this worked well, this didn't. And we're able to produce a lot of really cool stuff from it. And I don't know, I think that part of it's exciting. Not all of them are gems, of course, but I think there's still some really cool things to be found in the indie scene.
Mm. Yeah. I think that's pretty much the last place to find cool is the indie scene in any genre, and it doesn't matter what it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I still hold that. I don't know if they really wanted to. So again, eventually you have the people that care about the thing starting the thing, but at the point that we're at now, the people that are business people are running everything. So I still think that it would be possible tomorrow to make good shit again. I really do. It's just that the people in charge would have to basically swap positions with the people who care. And that's what's stopping it. The people that care are sitting here with their hearts broken a lot of the times, and the people that are with the wallets are making the decisions. And it just can't be that way.
I think your point is perfectly illustrated between, and I'm going to use Godzilla again because that's what I do, but Godzilla Minus One was made on a budget of peanuts compared to Godzilla X Kong. And what Godzilla X Kong is going to, and I think I'm going to enjoy the movie. I don't think I'm going to hate it. I really don't. I might hate it, but I don't think I'm going to. I think it's going to be okay. But the reason why it's just okay is because
fucking boomers.
I don't even know if it's boomers anymore, man. I think Gen Xers are pretty much there, and it's just people. You get people that worry about dollars and cents and just pure numbers over art, and that's. I think that's been going on for a long time, but like there used to be people who had an adventurer's spirit in filmmaking, or there used to be people willing to take risks, and no one wants to take a risk anymore. Well, apparently, unless it supports some ridiculous ideologies, but that's neither here nor there. But I don't know. I think that you look at the difference between the two, and you have a guy that made a film on a sub 15 million budget. We know that because he said he wished it was that much, and he produced this beautiful work of art that blew so many people's minds. And then you have Godzilla X Kong, which is going to be, okay, so Big Monkey as the enemy worked in the last movie, and we made a bunch of money. What if there's two big monkeys? And then the whole clan of big monkeys. Right. And then
longer.
Right. Yeah. It's like Godzilla X Kong 2. Yes. Right. So, you know what? There was a movie series where there was a glove that a guy wore on his hand. So let's give Kong a glove. Sorry, I'm doing the Batman voice now. But let's give Cog a big, and you know what? There's something kind of corny and cool about it, but again, I don't think that's why they're doing it. I don't think they're doing it because it's fun. I think they're doing all that they're doing purely like, oh, we could sell toys with a metal, robot hand on Kong, and
That's yeah.
So what I mean?
So I'm gonna make this prediction for my for that movie. I don't think it's possible that it will be good. But here's the thing. I think it could either be entertaining or it's gonna be bad. I don't think good is on the table. If it's even entertaining, like Thor Ragnarok was not good, but it was very entertaining, and I like watching that movie. I can objectively say it was not a well-made movie, script-wise, so on and so forth. But it was entertaining. So at best, I think this movie could be entertaining. And if it's that, I'll still be fucking amazed.
I think that's really, other than Kong Skull Island, which I think is a genuinely good, well-made film.
That was really good. That was
really
good.
I would say that kind of sums up the entire MonsterVerse. I think any of the Godzilla titles have been good, like in terms of like quality. I think they've all been very entertaining. I wouldn't call any of them like, pinnacles of their genre by any means. I
wouldn't call them pinnacles. I would call them good though. I mean, like King of Monsters, I loved. I mean, if you're gonna say pinnacle, then you've got to say -1. Okay. Pinnacle, right? They can't all, but it's just like The Last of Us.
They can't all be
So now you can't all be The Last of Us, though. At least be good, and we'll be happy. But when it starts to be shit, and you're and you brought up a good point, by the way. You brought up the fact, unless it's for some ideology, right? You know what? So this kind of brings back to my point about everything, is that it's fucking on purpose, because they're afraid to take chances because there's so much money involved. But they will voluntarily lose money over and over and over for years for ideology. It's on purpose. I see that. Just to me, that proves my point even more, that it could be better tomorrow if there were different people involved, which we will never have control of.
Right.
But anyways, but I just wanted to throw that out there, that you made that point. I think it should be restated that it can be about money, but again, with my view of reality, I don't think it is. Because they'll lose money all day long if it's for the alphabet community. You know what I mean? They'll throw money away and then say it's your fault for the alphabet community.
Well, I think there's a level of, I don't know. I think with all that, well, it's just like them blaming the failure of the Marvels on, anti-feminist sentiment. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like,
no.
It has nothing to do with that.
I would have watched Miss Marvel all day long, just like I watched Captain America, if it was good. That's all I care about. Don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't hate women. They hate women. We're not the ones giving women shitty movies. They are.
Yeah, I mean, but then like you have the actresses getting mad, like Scarlett Johansson after the failure of Black Widow was like, oh, you just don't like women. No, we haven't liked anything that Marvel's done in the past like 6 years. Can you not tell? Like
nothing.
Like,
and guess what, ScarJo? They don't like you, because if they did, you would have had a movie right after Iron Man 2, when we were screaming for years for her to get a movie. She got a movie at the point that no one gave a shit about, after her character was already dead.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All of them can go fuck themselves, because I don't give a shit. They're the ones that hate women, not us.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, and probably a good logical place to end up on. We are approaching on an hour.
Done, buddy.
Yeah, I think it was really solid. We covered a lot of ground. There's a lot of layers to peel from that whole onion. So it was a lot of pleasure.
Layers in that reality onion.
Yes,
and
indeed.
It's stinky.
Maybe sometime we'll have to talk about some gaming franchises we wish would return, because that would be a lot of fun.
Okay, like dead gaming franchises, or ones that we wish were they just remake better, like God of War still going, but I wish it'd go back to the way it was.
I was thinking of dead ones in my mind, but we could do ones that need a reboot.
Brittany had a really good idea too. I have like a Marvel trivia box, you know what I mean? And we could have like me and you Marvel trivia, like tit for tat.
I could look up lists.
Cause
trivia.
I'm not like John from John's Long Box. I don't have like an encyclopedia of everything Marvel and comic books and DC. That guy like knows everything. I was never that person. I just knew what I liked at the time. You know, so that might be a good.
I think if they asked about characters, that would be interesting. I think if they asked about like characters, like when you get into like artists and you know,
most of it's characters.
Most
of it's characters. Maybe. Well, it won't be next week. Next week is Christmas.
Right.
But the week after that, maybe we can get like MattMan versus Romo on trivia, like Marvel trivia or something.
Right. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
All right,
buddy. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night.
I will talk to you. I'll talk to you soon, probably.
Pleasure as always.
All right, see you, bud. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit cb4k.org.